Cafecito, cafecito break,
It's Cafecito break time.
cafecito break, cafecito, cafecito
Cafecito break. And
cafecito,
I've got my amazing
cafecito,
black espresso.
cafecito, cafecito break.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our New York Freedom Fighter X Space replay. And today, our conversation is featuring our brothers, Erik Soto and Scott Perez. Bold, we the people, Patriots. I hope that you guys are feeling pretty good. And let's jump into the show. Are you ready? Do you have your cafecito? Do you have a little cup of tea? Something that you can listen passively as you go about your day and take a listen to this amazing conversation hosted by yours truly of Cafecito Break and our brothers Cozy from Cozy's Wellness and Mark at Mark4NY. All right, mi gente, take a listen. Mic check.
1 2 1 2.
All right, let's get started. Let's get the space warmed up. Welcome to our New York Freedom Fighter X Space, hosted by yours truly, Rosangel, one of the Perez sisters of Cafecito Break. We're indie media producers and content creators based out of New York, and this space is co-hosted by Cozy's Wellness, and my brother Mark4NY at Mark4NY. And before I pass down the mic to my brothers, I want to say I'm excited about the show and the guest and what we're talking about today. And it's focused upon being a bold patriot. And our spotlight guests tonight are Erik Soto, who's we'll introduce momentarily after we get through introductions and announcements. And his show, we'll talk about his show, what makes him a bold patriot, and also Scott Perez, who will be joining us shortly, and he goes by Red Day Walker on Instagram. So welcome everyone. One of my announcements that I'm excited to share is that my sister and I just started a happy hour Wednesday. It's it's not the first time we've done happy hours at restaurants before. We're doing it before COVID, and during COVID a lot of things got funny, a lot of in-person gatherings. We're still recouping that muscle in different places. It's getting better, which is wonderful, but the effects are still, small businesses, for example, like restaurants, were hit hard and impacted in places like New York, where we kept opening and closing, opening and closing. So one of the restaurants that we were featuring during those days was Gran Morelos. Is a Mexican restaurant in Brooklyn, and we're happy to announce that we are collaborating with them on another level this time, and that's to not only help them with their business promotion. So we'll be doing in in-person live IG segments from the restaurant and also promotions from the restaurant, while at the same time, while we're there from 5 to 7 p.m. on most Wednesdays. So stay connected to our social media handles so you can see. We just started it last Wednesday for the first time. It's burrito specials that start at 12 o'clock. The Perez sisters slide in at 5 to 7. We say hello. If you want to come and hang out with us, please. Space is limited, so we encourage you to call the restaurant directly and make reservations. And we will be there this Wednesday officially from 5 to 7, Gran Moreros. And I'll post that in the comment section. And I just want to say thank you for the Freedom Fam that did show up last Wednesday, surprised us. It was amazing. The owner was super happy. He's a big Kennedy fan, and we gave him a Maha hat. And he was really, really excited. So with that, I'd like to pass this on to Cozy.
What's going on, everybody? And yeah, that's really exciting, Rose Angel. I was happy to see you guys doing that because, for one, you're supporting small businesses that really need the help, and also it's a great way for you to kind of, have a place do your lives. That was a pretty cool and unique way of doing things. So I was very happy to see that, and very happy to see the Freedom Fam show up and surprise you guys. That was awesome. Um, yeah. So um, yeah, what an interesting couple of weeks. I've been sick, so I was out of action, but I am feeling better. Um, and I just wanted to say, hope everybody's doing well. And just wanted to plug quickly that I do have soaps for sale, currently available, six different scents. You can go check them out at Cozy's Pure Soaps on Instagram. That's instagram.com/Cozy's Pure Soaps. You will find the absolute best soaps. And I'm not just saying that because they're my soaps. I'm saying that because that's what people are telling me. So go check them out. Made from the best oils on the planet. Check them out, and that's how you can support me in my mission. Thank you. Mark?
Hello, fellow freedom loving Americans. Mark Fernway here. USA beats the crap out of Canada in hockey, which is a good thing. They play in the finals this Thursday. A lot of bad news. They're looking to inject our chickens with vaccines now. I posted that on my most recent Instagram post. The newly appointed Secretary of Agriculture basically approved that tentatively. We got to make our voices heard. Brooke Rollins was appointed by Trump and made that decision. Shout out to Liberty Dan for posting it on Instagram. I reposted it. He wants to blame Trump instantly, and I want to point out that Trump is not necessarily to blame. He doesn't make every single decision in the country. That's what he appoints cabinet members to do. And he can override it. So hopefully it comes across his attention and doesn't allow our vaccines in our chickens. Obviously, the extra, I know I'm going right into some of the topics, but I wanted to make sure that I covered this because we have other topics to talk about. But our egg shortage is a result of the Biden administration literally killing hundreds of millions of chickens because if one chicken tests positive, the entire farm's worth of chickens is ordered to be executed, which is why we have the shortage. But the answer isn't to vaccinate the chickens. The answer is to, have more common sense and not kill 100 million chickens because of a virus. So, um, there's that. I've been feeling sick the past couple of weeks. I feel a lot better than I do last week. I'm not 100%, unfortunately. More bad news on the personal side. The doxing continues. I finally got a sales position where I was making significant money like I used to, but for some reason they canceled my friend's business account for no legitimate reason. And it's probably my fault for posting it on Instagram a while back and putting that information out there. But when I returned to financial services, I made 10,000 in my first week in 2021. When I was running for city council, I made the mistake of putting the company I worked for in LinkedIn, and got fired for no reason. So that's one of the downsides of being brave and running for office and fighting the good fight. But if I had to go back in time, I wouldn't change a thing. And I'm going to continue fighting. If anything, when they piss me off more, all it does is motivate me to, fight back. And the way I fight back is running for office, which is probably something I'm going to do because they keep messing with me. So, but I'm gonna, land my plane now here, and we got a couple of special guests here, and I'll pass it back to Cafecito to make those introductions.
Oh, wow. I have to say, Mark, thank you for sharing that. And that's incredibly sad news. You've been through quite an ordeal, and I definitely appreciate your presence here. And I hope that we keep growing as a family. We have been making waves here with our collaborations. And one of the reasons I'm also excited about our guests this evening are because these two gents are truly, they've been like little um treasures that have come out of nowhere for Cafecito Break. Like sometimes you have no idea when you're gonna get support from like unexpected places. And these two amazing gents, they are collaborate on a show, big Red One Guy on YouTube and also on Rumble. They've been experiencing their also their own plights and journeys. They both have roots in New York. So I'm really excited. This is truly a New York freedom fighter roundtable, even if, we may find ourselves in different places in New York at the moment. Welcome to the show, Erik Soto and Scott Perez. Erik,
I invited Scott to speak. He hasn't. So there we go.
okay, awesome. And so, and I'm just a couple of like little house rules. Just one person speak at a time. Sometimes we're all speaking, or we have our like make sure if you're not speaking, have your mic muted. So I'm pretty sure you guys don't know this. Just we keep getting notes every single time we host one of these X spaces. So we're just trying to have a clean show. Anyway, I'd like to start this question. My first question, I'll pass it on to Erik Soto. If you can introduce yourself, plug your shows, and also tell us a little bit about your journey from your roots in New York and your recent move.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. Uh, Rose Angel, Kazi, definitely appreciate Cozy. Mark, thank you very much for having me. So I host along with Scott. He's my co-host, and really, really good friend. We host the Break the Machine podcast on my channel on both YouTube and Rumble. It is Big Red One Guy. I'm Big Red One Guy across every platform. So you'll find me on Truth, X, everywhere as Big Red One Guy. So that's where we host it Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, 8 p.m. to whenever. So it's we usually go anywhere between an hour to 2 hours. And we had the fortune of actually having the Perez sisters on a couple of Fridays ago, and it was a wet bar Friday, so we appreciate it. Well, I'm originally from I grew up a portion of my life in Brooklyn, in Sunset Park. And, probably about the age of 13, my parents moved us out of the city and we went up to Rockland County. So I did high school up there. And, long time New Yorker, did my partying in the city and whatnot, and Limelight Kid and all that other stuff, right? So, New York will always have a special place in my heart, but I've actually, over the years just have watched it deteriorate. And the politics were, growing up, it was kind of even, right? So I'm old enough because, I'm old enough to remember when the state assembly was essentially blue and the state senate was essentially red, and there used to be some go in betweens, and they were able to work things out. And then once the Democrats got a supermajority in New York, then we watched the state just go downhill from there. So I left the state of New York, I want to say in December of last year, and it was really mainly for two reasons. Mainly because like my family is in the South, they left New York a long time ago, and I was just kind of holding on. And I just decided to take off and finally make my move to be close to the family. And also, I was just kind of done with New York politics. As much as I love New York and I love the city and whatnot, and the state is still a very, very beautiful state with very, very beautiful people left in the state. New York wasn't about it for me anymore, and I had to move to a free state. So that brought me down to where I'm at right now.
Thank you for the response. Excuse me. Red, Scott Perez, welcome. No relation, fam. Maybe there's some relationship down the family tree, because I got to say the Perez's procreated a lot in Puerto Rico, but that I'm aware of, we're not related. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. I'm not born in Puerto Rico. I was born just outside of New York City. I was actually born over in Valley Stream, and I only lived there for about 6 months. So I'm not necessarily a New Yorker. My mom was, but not me. I grew up in New Hampshire. I lived for about 8 years in Philly, and way back in 2009, I moved to the free state of Florida, and been here ever since. And thankful, more thankful for that move than I ever thought I would be when I first moved down here. Little did I know how things were going to go about 5 years ago. I really was not a political person for most of my life. I was not awake. I was asleep. And I never really paid attention to politics at all. I wasn't Republican. I wasn't Democrat. Started waking up after 9/11. Just the whole thing smelled weird to me. And it wasn't until Obama, though, that I started to realize that everything was going to shit. Um, and that the world that I thought I was living in was not really the world that I was in. And then a certain orange man from New York City finished my waking up process around 2017, and I've been pretty awake ever since. I mean, I spend most of my time. For those that don't know me here on X, I don't do a really good job at branding myself like my buddy Erik. I do have different handles on the different apps that I'm on, but on Instagram is my primary home. I'm red underscore daywalker 2.0. I just hit 90,000 followers this past weekend, and I have no idea why I'm growing so much, but I must be saying something right because people from all around the world are following me right now, and I'm just I'm just spreading truth. You know, whether it's not even a Republican versus Democrat thing, I'm just trying to at this point in my life, just trying to share reality because I remember things that Google won't let you look up and Wikipedia won't talk about. I remember, things that happened back in the 70s and 80s and 90s that, before the internet was. And I'm sure, I don't know if you're aware of this, but my buddy Erik, we found each other just this past year. Our birthdays are like 3 days apart. Um, we're both Sagittariuses, literally 3 days apart. We're actually the same age. And somehow we found each other last year. And we've been sharing with each other what we know, and it's been a partnership. It's been a friendship, and we're just happy to meet a ton of good people along the way since then.
Thank you.
Mind if I chime
Go
in
ahead,
here?
Mark.
Yeah, so getting to what Erik said about, I remember the exact same thing of us controlling the Senate and when the drastic change was. I remember in 2018, the Democrats finally take the Senate. Our local South Brooklyn Senator Marty Golden, who was Bay Ridge, and for pretty much the entire time I lived in Bay Ridge, it seemed like for well over a decade, held the seat. And then next thing you know, they have a majority, and within days, they pass third trimester abortions as if that's something that with this huge celebration, and it's like were people really fighting to kill babies in the third trimester? Like, I don't want to make this an abortion thing, but really, like, there's people who have their opinions about abortion, but third trimester was not something that even the left was really fighting for. So why was like that the first thing on the agenda when they took over? And it basically has been downhill drastically. You see how quickly things changed from 2018. We had 2020 with the lockdowns and everything. Once they had total control of New York, you have a communist mayor in De Blasio, and it's destruction by design. I repeat that saying over and over again because you have to destroy what's there and make people reliant on the government to survive. In order to implement communism, you have to divide and conquer, and they do that by destroying the nuclear family, which especially in New York, I'm not going to go off on too much on a tangent with the communist agenda, but most of us know that already. And getting to what Scott was saying about information being hidden. Yeah, I mean, there's also the Mandela effect when it comes to a lot of things, even music. If album versions of the Smashing Pumpkins versus what's on iTunes now that says it's the album version, I was like, this song did not go like this. That was not the tune. That's not what I remember. I've listened to the track 1,000 times. That's not the original track. Why are they changing our music? Metallica and a lot of other songs out there, they're just changing for some weird, psychological reason or whatever. It seems like everything's a psyop, and it's crazy to say, but it's the reality. I don't, he talked about how certain things were there in the 70s and 80s that aren't on the internet, and you know, the internet. You mentioned that Obama was you're waking up, Scott. A lot of that also had to do with the internet because most of us went by what was on TV. That's where we got our information from, whether it's a Comedy Central politics or CNN or Fox News or whatever the case may be. That's where you got most of your information from. Occasionally, unless you're politically involved and you speak to people who are politically involved, that's where you got your information from, and that's where you got your thought process from. So, the introduction of Facebook and social media with people posting about politics, whether it annoyed you or not, that also helped in the awakening of a lot of people, thankfully. So there's the good and the bad with social media. There's the screen time. There's the addiction aspect. People are less productive. People are more depressed. It's less healthy to stare at a screen all day. You could go on and on about the negatives. But the positive is, we woke up a lot as a result of social media, and God knows where we would have been without it, without having that information. They censor us, they shadow ban us and everything, but at least we get our messages across, and at least we have platforms like this now, no matter how many followers we have. So, Scott?
Just to your point, what you were just saying, I've told this to many people. I'm not sure if I've told you, Eric, this, but I would rather be sad and awake than happy and asleep. And I would rather know what the real world was around me. I would rather know that politicians are lying to me. I would rather know that my money is being stolen. I would rather know that there are forces out there that, if it's the Catholic Church, that's not really the Catholic Church. If it's that there's people out there trafficking kids just to have sex with them. I want to know that. I don't want to just think that everything is hunky dory and that, yep, I just need to pay my taxes and just keep my head down and I'm fine. You know, um, there's just, and it sucks because on social media you get exposed to a lot of fake crap as much as, stuff that's actually legitimate. You have to discern quite a bit on a daily basis. I'm extremely busy from the time I wake up until the time I go to sleep, from just my work, my marriage, my personal life, and then my social media life. But at the same time, I feel blessed that I'm at least to the point where I can see that it's not just, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to call it. It's just that I'm happier. I'm happier now, even just knowing about the evils in the world than I was 20 years ago, just thinking that nothing existed at all.
Yeah, they say ignorance is bliss, but it really isn't. It's just, yeah, there's it's a different world, and I think if I didn't get into politics, I don't know where I'd be as far as levels of success or whatever. But I don't think I don't even want to think about it because I wouldn't do anything differently. I just feel like if you know something is wrong and you do nothing, then you're part of the problem, in my opinion. If you don't want to speak out, if you're afraid or whatever, it's easier. I saw a post recently that said, choose your heart. It's hard to be fat and it's hard to work out and be in shape. So choose your heart. And it's like, it's hard to, fight and, but it's hard to suffer the consequences of communism. So choose your heart. Like you could either stay quiet and wait for the government to destroy your life, or you could go out there and fight and prevent it from being like that. Because once you're in a global communist agenda, which is what this has been, there's no fighting your way out of that. You could look at the communist countries that don't have guns now; they can't fight back. It's too late. So I mean, that's basically it. So, passing it back to Erik.
Yeah, so for me, we had when we had uh Rose and her sister on, it was, I explained to them that, like, my family, we were never on the plantation ever. We have some pendejos in our family, but we still love them. But like my immediate family, we were never really on a plantation. So, you know, um my parents taught us growing up to question everything. That was just me and my brother. We questioned everything, and we questioned them. Well, we got in trouble when we questioned them, but that's just the way it was, right? And going to what you were saying, Mark, was the communist thing is something I've been talking about for a long time. So for me, like last year, was like, I want to say January of last year. I personally felt that, God was telling me, hey, you've been using your mouthpiece for a long time. Nobody's really listening to you, but you need to keep talking, and this is what you need to do. And I started my channel up, and I've been fortunate enough to continue to create a community, especially with Scott. Scott has been a big part of the show that we got going on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and bringing people over. He's helped me get guests and whatnot. So I'm fortunate that I have someone like Scott, and I'm glad that now, we have another platform coming over here to talk to you guys, and being invited to tell our story. But the communist thing, Mark, I've been telling people for a long time, and what people don't understand. Again, Scott and I are around the same age, right? So 51 years old, Gen X, we had shit figured out. We had a lot of shit figured out. Okay. We have friends that we disagreed with, right? Growing up in high school and even after high school and whatnot. And we would joke around, and even on politics, we'd bag on each other about stuff. We'd laugh about it, but we always respected one another. And then I started to see the change when Obama got elected, and I didn't vote for him. I wouldn't have voted for him. I never voted for a Democrat ever in my life, nor will I ever. But I understood the significance of the election, right? I understood where we were as a country, by voting this man into office. And I said, I would tell people he has a chance to do something really, 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 really good. And of course he didn't, right? I thought he was gonna take the opportunity and maybe bring us together, but the division started almost immediately with him. And that's when I noticed like a big change in the country with some of the things that he was doing as president, the way he was using his mouth with the media, right? And then of course now we now we know, going back to then and even before then, with the media collusion with the government and whatnot and propaganda, with all this stuff that came out of the CIA that we now know and everything, right? All of those programs, Mockingbird and whatnot. But the whole communism things, brother, I have been preaching about uh, the Marxist movement and how it actually has affected us as a nation. Okay, people don't seem to understand. We're seeing the Marxist movement now because it's what Mark and Scott were talking about with social media. Okay, we're seeing it like out in the open because they became overt about it, and they were telling you exactly, they were going to show you what they did. But the Marxist movement started in this country really, okay, in the late 19th century, early 20th century, because they had already had a foothold in Europe, but they understood how our constitution worked, right? The communists are very, very good at what they do. And they knew they couldn't come at us. And like you were saying, Mark, breakdown of the family. They infiltrated absolutely every institution in America, and we are seeing the fight we're having today is because as a country we stood back and we were complacent, okay, and we didn't pay attention to things, and a lot of people were asleep, right, at the wheel, and we were plugged into the matrix. And now that we're out, we can't go back in. I mean, you can go back in and go taste that steak if you want to, but things are going to change now, and social media is having a big presence. And I think Scott has his hand up, so let me turn it over to my homie.
Oh, I did. I didn't know if I did I accidentally hit it. I
I didn't see the
I
hand
could.
up. I actually wanted to
No, you go
interject if
ahead.
that's
Go
okay with
ahead. I'll
you.
shut.
Yeah. Yeah, the social media aspect. First of all, backtracking in order of what you said, Obama, we didn't have Republicans or racist anywhere in mainstream in the 80s or the 90s until Obama became president. Then it became, if you don't agree with Obama, it's because you're a racist, not because you're a Republican, not because you have a different thought process or different ideology. If it's either, and these are simple-minded people, and it's easy to convince them that because they didn't know the difference between Republican or Democrat. They just saw a black president, and if you disagree with the black president, it's because you're a racist. Oh, Republicans are the other side, they must be the bad guys now. So it didn't matter. Like, they try to blame Trump for all this division, but the reality, Trump was a Republican and Obama was a Democrat, so Trump must be a racist. And the media just ran with that because that's what a lot of the simple-minded people in the country thought, that if you don't agree with him, you're a racist. So that's where the major division was caused. And even Obama himself had admitted that, the division was caused during his presidency. He said he regretted it. I don't know whether I believe that or not. It seemed like it was all part of the divide and conquer communist agenda. So, and social media, I'll pass. Scott does have his hand up now, but I'll just finish off with this. Social media, going to one of the cons of it is people are afraid to speak out on social media because you can be, bullied and doxxed, like in my particular case and many people's cases, having their professional careers ruined because of their political opinions. So they go and let things like women being male and men being in women's sports and beating them up in MMA. And if you say something against that, then you're a bigot. And people, there's certain things where thankfully we got more people that have the common sense to stand up for certain things. But they basically get away with whatever they want, and common sense goes out the window. And people don't want to are afraid to speak out against the mentally ill sounding liberals for fear of retribution. So I'll pass it over to Scott now.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I don't believe for 1 second that he regrets anything. I think he enriched himself. I think he enriched his family, and he's even on Biden's watch. He was still enriching himself. Um, it was him that, and if I hope I'm pronouncing this the right way, I believe it was him that passed the Smith-Mundt Act. That not only he just permitted it, just gave them credence, give the media credence to use propaganda on the American people. And I know if you put that up on most social media sites, they will mark it as misinformation. But you can just look it up on the government websites. It's there. It exists. They're trying. They're trying to psyop it out of existence, but it's there in writing. Just like when they were trying to say that Kamala wasn't the border czar, when it was right there in black and white. She was in the executive order. She was named the border czar. And I don't know if it's maybe because me and Erik are both Gen Xers, that we're the last generation that remembers when social media wasn't the be all end all of life. We remember a lot of things before. We knew how to have a good time and have hang out with your friends without a smartphone, without the internet. We could probably we knew how to find directions to places without the internet. We didn't have to. We lived in a time when there was phones actually had cords on them. But as far as Obama,
And a rotary dial that if you missed that, you have to
oh,
start
I
from
love
the
those things.
beginning.
I voted for Obama the first time. I voted for him in 2008, and I thought, here it was, naive me, before I was fully awake. I thought racism was over. I thought we were done. I thought, you know what? I was part of that. I was smiling, looking at Oprah on TV, saying, "Look at us! Look at what we did. We did something that they said we'd never ever do." When I grew up, since I was a kid, I was told we'd never have a black president ever. My parents told me that. There's like even they not that they were even against it. They weren't racist. They were just said they never believed that there would be. And here we were in 2008. He didn't just win. He won running away with it. He blew out. I don't remember, was it McCain? He blew him out. He blew him out. It was like Trump beating Kamala. It was like he didn't just like he didn't just barely win. He blew McCain out. But by the time he was done, but by the time at the end of his first term, I had a completely different image. And like to what you were saying, Mark, about the whole fact that anybody that's against him, you're racist. I remember seeing that on the news, and I kept thinking to myself, what are you talking about? I just don't agree with this policy. Why do I have to be a racist just because I don't agree with this policy? And unfortunately, we've lost that discourse in America. We're starting to get a little bit of it back, but we have a long way to go. Because again, the media, um, and it's just a shame. I used to never know what my friends voted. I used to never know who was a Democrat and who was a Republican. I never grew up thinking that. I never knew what people's opinions were on abortion. people that I worked with, the people that I went to school with. I didn't know. It was not even something you talked about. And now it's like the first thing on the application is like, are you a Republican or a Democrat? If you fill out a personality profile somewhere, you're like, what are your feelings on this issue? What are your feelings on this? It's ridiculous. And I'll just end it with that. It's just like that the whole Obama stretch, by the time he was out of office, by the time Trump came along, I was just thinking to myself, please somebody come save us.
Excellent conversation we're having this evening. I have several Obama stories that are competing that I'd like to share. First of all, I was one of those tremenda pendejas that was all about Obama, and I was in love with him. I even had dreams about, like, oh my God, why are you trying to hold my hand, Obama? Michelle's gonna find out. Like, I was in love con ese hombre. So obviously, yo gané. I voted for him. I took my little screenshot. I wanted to share it into the world that I voted for Obama, and I was cool, right? But before that, I have to also admit that I remember Hillary was running a la misma vez, and I was on the Hillary Clinton Kool-Aid too. I fell for the whole break the ceiling tremendo bullshit, right? Why? Where's my pip? Where's my cornerstone? I'm a modern day woman working in production at MTV. So you get clued in to certain environments, and I didn't realize a lot of things, primarily just how big of a programming machine I was embedded in, and that when my life work would cross over, because I worked on the Choose or Lose campaign, and that made it a possibility for me to be in these political places. So even though my world was music television, now all of a sudden I'm in the elevator and I'm in the DNC, or now I'm in the RNC, and I'm seeing all of these politicians I would have never, ever, ever been able to see. But we have backstage access. So you are hearing and seeing a whole lot that I wasn't prepared to understand energetically or intuitively, but things leave traces and things leave clues. And my first Obama wake up from the deception really came, which is interesting because it's connected to now what we're doing in the present moment, advocating for medical freedom. I was so pissed off that we were being coerced into wanting to say yes to Obamacare. Big Red.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. Like the Obamacare thing was I knew it was going to be a disaster. It, medicine already was already an issue in the country, right? Because when we turned over, and this really happened, I want to say the late 60s, early 70s, when we turned over medicine essentially over to insurance companies, we took away that personal relationship with our doctors, right? Like we would go to our primary cares. I mean, I wasn't born in the 60s, but I know the history. So yeah, that was something that definitely made things a lot worse. Remember, if you have your doctor, you'll keep your doctor. Remember that was total bullshit, right? But with Obama, for me, I knew who he was going back to his days in Illinois, because I just researched who's running. I was like, I knew he was a senator, and I was like, oh, how is this guy gonna beat out Hillary Clinton? But then the whole, again, the racism and the early stages of what we got DEI was happening back then, right? But for me, with him, where he absolutely completely lost me, because remember I said that, all right, I didn't vote for him, but he's in a position where he can bring the country together. But almost immediately, he just went right into division, right? And that was one of the first things he did. But this is a guy, okay, who grew up a Marxist. Both his parents were Marxist. Okay, so in his mindset, with his Chicago talk and all that other stuff, maybe he was slick. He was slicker than Slick Willie, right? And he was able to inject his Marxist ideas very, very well, right? So when Republicans lost the House and they got, well, they were actually, let me take that back. The Democrats had, the House and the Senate the first 2 years of his first term, and they ran. That's when they rammed in the Obamacare and all that other stuff that they did. But with him, with me, what he did to the military was something that was absolutely devastating for me, especially being a combat vet. Okay, right or wrong, whether we agree why we went into Iraq or not, country called, I went. Period. But my son was in at the time, and throughout his whole time as the president, he just, like they always do, the Marxists do, they come in and they just destroy the military, make it worse, all right, than what it already is, all right, and they just rip it apart. He was doing things that was just uncanny with the military. He turned the military into a social experiment, right? And we just started seeing it, right? With the don't ask, don't tell, got rid of that. And listen, those of you that served, whether you were in the police department, whether you're in the military fire, we knew who was walking around, a little sweeter than bear meat. We understood that, but we didn't give a shit, right? If you got into a foxhole with us and rounds had to go down range, that was what was most important for us, right? But this guy, once he did that, I saw what it ended up becoming under Biden, that the uniform was going to be disgraced and the esprit de corps was going to be destroyed in the military, and that's what ended up happening to the point where my son, when he was in during the Obama years, okay, he used to fix jets, okay, and I remember him telling me, we had a conversation. He was like, "Dad, we're getting parts for our jets from museums, air museums across the country, all right, in order to repair parts and stuff like that." That's how bad it is. So, the whole Obama thing, that was just essentially the beginning, the beginning of the end for a lot of things. And that's when I kind of ramped up for me personally, where I was like, all right, I'm ramping up my voice a little bit. But I didn't really ramp it up again, like I said, until last year. The most was like, enough's enough. We can't do this anymore. So, but take it.
Yeah, I just want to touch. I got my life and health insurance license in 2005. I was a financial advisor. Knew right from the beginning that Obamacare was going to be a disaster. But you had people like Bill Maher on Comedy Central saying, "Why don't we just try it? Like it's not something that you just try, like you try a piece of cake or something and see if it tastes good or not. It's like once it's in there, it's going to destroy the healthcare system," which is exactly what it did. And people don't understand like anything about insurance. They just think, oh, insurance is bad. Like pre-existing conditions, they say, oh, it's so messed up that you have a pre-existing condition and the insurance doesn't cover it. Okay, well now you got rid of that, and what happens? It's called adverse selection. If you're forcing an insurance company to pay for something, like, okay, I'm going to pay you 5,000 a year in premiums, and I'm going to require $100,000 worth of expenses that you have to pay because I'm paying my 5,000 in premiums. You're going to have to pay this 100,000 because I require these treatments and stuff, and there's nothing you could do about it. What happens? They're going to force everyone to pay for that that premium to make up for it. It's just you can't force a bad business practices on somebody. Insurance companies, whether you like them or not, they have to make money, and if they don't make money, they have to raise premiums for everybody, which is why the cost of insurance skyrocketed. So I mean, I sold life insurance, and people, like, they would try to get life insurance when they have cancer, and it's like, no, it's too late. You're not going to get approved because you have cancer now. Like, you get life insurance when you're healthy, and people say, "Oh, I don't need life insurance. I'm healthy." I was like, "Yeah, that's the time when you could actually get it. You can't get it when you're not healthy." So yeah, it's and then he also forced people to if you're too broke to pay for insurance, because the people who have Medicaid, they weren't affected at all because Medicaid pays for everything. So if you're poor, you got free coverage no matter what. So Obamacare doesn't make any difference to your life whatsoever because you're not paying any premiums and you're not paying any co-pays, you're not paying for anything. So, and that's the way it's been. So, but they're the ones advocating for Obamacare when Obamacare does absolutely nothing to affect their pockets. Um, but the people who were too broke to pay for insurance and had no insurance were now paying a penalty for being too broke to pay for insurance. So now they have less money and no insurance because they couldn't afford the premium, so they opted out, and then they pay a penalty on their tax return. So Trump got rid of that aspect, which, is fair, obviously, to not penalize people for being too broke to get insurance. But he couldn't get rid of the pre-existing conditions clause because, that once that's in there, it's very hard to take out because public opinion will make you the enemy. And that's the one thing that's driving, skyrocketing the prices of health insurance for healthy people because they have to pay for everybody else. So, um, yeah, it sounds bad. You want people to get coverage when they have a pre-existing condition, but there was a way around it. I put it in my website. When my website was up, I don't have didn't have the financial resources to continuously pay for websites, and I know it's not that expensive, but I put in a plan that was a middle ground between universal health care and for-profit health care, to put out there. And, I put in all the details on my website when I was running for office, but it's not there anymore. But it's something that maybe if I run for office, I'll write out the details again one more time. But yeah, something has to be done with healthcare. Obamacare was not it. And unfortunately, so many people don't understand that that's what caused the skyrocketing, will continue to cause the skyrocketing of health insurance because you just can't get rid of it because the public is too brainwashed to think that it was a good thing. So, and then I'll land my plane there and pass it back over to Cafecito or Cozy.
Yeah, Cozy, let me know if you want to ask a question. Uh, Following up on what you guys are talking about, because and thank you, Mark, for adding more to the Obamacare thing. Because initially, when we're all as human beings, we're reading information, we're interpreting data, but we're also perceiving and feeling and understanding with our senses and beyond, right? And also our connection to God and faith and things that we have experienced. So what I didn't like about the Obamacare was sort of like the control mechanism, almost like who the heck are these people telling us this is what's good for you and you're going to like it? Because that's what to me was the message that I was getting behind it. And my awakening moments were coming from just understanding the mechanisms of, when you're embedded in music television, and my job was to write show production budgets, and you start to understand whether you want to or not, you have to understand numbers, and you have to understand most of the departments that within that production house, to understand how that works so that you can create a budget that's going to work and be effective. So you have a show that starts, that you hire people, you do the production, and then you wrap it up. um, when you start to see, when I started waking up, it was because I started to realize that the political machine was moving like that, very just just so, I mean, I guess they've always moved like that, but it was so in your face with Obama. And then to me, it was even more in my face with AOC. And here's my question to you guys. Was it always also around the Obama admin where it started getting bad to say Merry Christmas, when you were getting pushed to say Happy Holidays, where all of a sudden uh, Christmas songs were getting taken off the radio? If can someone clarify that for me, I'll pass it on to Big Red.
Just want to say, yeah, it was, but continue.
Um,
Okay.
to be honest, I noticed the change in Merry Christmas to Happy Holidays going way back into the 1990s. So what you have to understand is this movement, the Marxists, they play the long game. Well, the American Marxist plays the long game, right? Like if it's not like total carnage and war to take over their own countries and whatnot and fighting their governments like what they were doing in Europe back in the day. It was a long game here in the United States for the Marxists. And, we thankfully dodged the we dodged an intercontinental ballistic missile, okay, with this last election. So I noticed change with not saying Merry Christmas and stuff like that. I mean, I was gonna always continue to say Merry Christmas. You're gonna stop me. Um, Going back to the '90s, I also noticed how things were changing in commercials, how things were changing in movies, and the political correctness was starting to ramp up around that time, and stuff like that. And obviously, it morphed into the DEI stuff that we're dealing with now. And thankfully, America has kind of stepped back and was like, yeah, we're not going to take that anymore. And this last election, that was one of the reasons why people were flipping the letter in front of their name and in front of their voting booth and whatnot, and voting with us because they were just tired of the stuff. So I personally noticed this stuff going way back into the 1990s when things were changing. And Mark, thanks for that insight, by the way, for the insurance, because like I personally think that the whole thing with Obamacare was to be the first step for they wanted to go to a European model, universal healthcare across the board, because they were constantly talking about that. People weren't paying attention, but it was being talked about a lot. And being somebody who's experiencing universal healthcare with the VA system like I do, it's not freaking. It doesn't really do anything universally, but hurt people in the end. That's just my personal opinion. But another thing with the insurance is that something that you hit on, which is totally true, is that the states kind of mandate, all right, what it is that the insurances can cover. We're seeing that in California with the whole thing with the fires, right? With State Farm pulled out of there and everything, and they were just like, "You're gonna make it too expensive for us to do work here, okay, and to actually insure people. We're just gonna leave." And that's what they did, and a couple of insurance agencies did that. So, the states pretty much dictate what it is that the insurance carriers do. At least up until Obamacare, that was one of the things, right? Because we used to hear all the time, um, you know, we should be able to get. There was no competition. There still is no competition. We should be able to go across state lines, and if there's a better plan from another state, same company, another state, I want to get that plan, right? That was one of the arguments that people were making against Obamacare. So, there's definitely no competition, definitely now whatsoever with Obamacare. So that kind of hurts with insurance carriers. But again, going back to the PC stuff and everything, for me, Cafecito, that was back in the 1990s for me.
Yeah, just want to. It was the '90s where you started saying Happy Holidays and seeing it on cards instead of Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays and stuff. But it wasn't that strong of a push, and it's not necessarily Obama. I think it's more social media that made it much bigger. It was more politically correct to say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas, and I think some comedians made jokes about it in the '90s and stuff, but I don't think it was as big. So yeah, I guess it started a while back, but yeah, and also going to your point, yeah, it is a long game with communism. The big thing that they did was controlling our education system and having brainwashed teachers and carrying that communist tradition into the classroom, from professors all the way down to professors teaching the kindergarten teachers to implement their communist agenda on kids at a young age. So but with insurance, property and casualty insurance is a different ball game. They jumped out before the fires hit in California. Whether or not that was a coincidence, I don't necessarily believe in that. It's kind of a too big to fail type of situation where they don't want insurance companies to go out of business with catastrophic instances like that. So maybe I'm gonna sit on the side of conspiracy, as per usual, that they knew something was happening, whether it was Project Bluebeam or whatever in California, and they got out of it. But it reminds me to Congressman Michael Grimm, who is the only congressman who's currently in Nicole Maliotakis' seat. But at the time, they wanted to get rid of flood insurance with Hurricane Sandy, and he fought the Flood Insurance Protection Act, to be able to cover Staten Islanders, for future flood damage, because all the insurance companies wanted to get rid of coverage out there. But still, the premiums were going to be astronomically high. So yes, you could get flood insurance, but He forced insurance companies to continue, but the rates were astronomical, like they are in Florida. So yeah, that's a whole different animal. But with insurance, I did have a plan that kind of put everyone having some type of basic insurance, which has a high co-insurance of capped at like 10,000 a year, so that way you're not paying much for insurance, but you have something where you're not going to have a six-figure bill that's going to ruin your life. That would be the basic level of insurance that every American citizen would have, so that they have something. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a lot of details, and I'm not going to get into it now. But maybe one day I'll write it all out again for hopefully Trump to implement or something. So something middle ground. Uh, Hillary Clinton wanted universal health care, but then the private insurance industry lobbyists made sure that that didn't happen. And I'm against universal health care, but universal health care is never going to happen because private insurance companies, they can't go out of business. Too many jobs, too much money is going to be it's going to be devastating to the economy if private insurance companies go out of business. So there is a middle ground where you can choose your insurance company, that's like a hybrid between universal health care, Obamacare, and what we had before. But I'll pass it on to Scott.
First, I just wanted to reiterate the same claim that the whole Happy Holidays thing definitely started way back in the day. It was way before Obama. I would probably agree that it probably started in the '90s because that's when most PCs started. I'm sure you've heard. I'm sure if anybody hasn't watched the movie PCU, that was a perfect encapsulation of where the movement started. It came in the early '90s, um, and to what Erik said too, how it wasn't so much in your face. It was sort of just it was gradual, and that's how it always is. We've all heard the metaphor of how to cook a frog. You don't. It's not drastic. It's very gradual. So so you don't become inconvenienced. You don't become. It's not a shock to the system.
The
Is it
boiling frog theory is what. Yeah.
exactly? Yeah. It's gradual, and if you want to talk about how long did it take for us to get from there to here, I tell people like from just because I can only go by my lifetime, so I just say like whatever it took. I said we'll just start from 1980, and we got to 19 or basically 2020. It took 40 years to get from a completely different world to where we are now. you know. And I know there's a lot of factors that go into that. It wasn't just the media, but it took basically that long for them to basically push us in one direction. And in a way, Trump losing in 2020, I've been seeing a lot of stories about this, a lot of posts about this, and in a way, it was almost like the long game. It almost had to happen for we're to get to where we are right now, because um, we're probably most of us are probably familiar with Agenda 2030. I think when Trump lost the election, however you want to say that went down, legitimately or illegitimately, um, they stopped trying to push really slowly. I think they literally tried to make up for the years they lost for Trump's first term, and that's where we saw this. We thought we thought it was bad under Obama. Biden was so much worse. And it was worse because they were upping the ante. They were trying to make up for lost time. So they pushed. And I'm not blaming it all on Biden because I don't think Biden was coherent. I don't think Biden actually even knew. He was just saying, like, oh, what's going to get my family $10 more million? Oh, okay, we'll do that. Oh, he was just listening to whatever the people were whispering in his ears to sign this and sign that or say this. I mean, we could see every time his teleprompter had a little fritz or went on the fritz, he didn't know what to say. um, and if that hadn't happened, Trump wouldn't have come roaring back. I don't know if another Republican would have beat Kamala, which is scary to think about. Like, I don't know. If it, I mean, who was the next person? I don't think DeSantis would have beaten her. I just don't think he has the charisma. So, I guess that's all I just wanted to say about that.
It was supposed to be Nikki Haley, which is why
Yes.
she kept she didn't bow out even though she had no chance to win, because by default, if Trump would have been assassinated like they intended, Nikki Haley was the last person standing in the she would have been by default the Republican nominee for the general election. So in case you didn't know that. So but the thing about it is, Trump doesn't have to worry about a reelection like he did the first year with the first term, where the vaccine was coming out, and pressure to release a vaccine with Operation Warp Speed, which a lot of our freedom fighters will never forget. Apparently, everything else that he did that's good, and everything that he's doing good now, is all irrelevant because of Operation Warp Speed. So he's definitely one of the bad guys, and you know. But Obama, during his second term, he didn't have to worry about a reelection either. So his main agenda was to pass gay marriage because him and Big Mike were married. So I'll land my plane with that because Cozy had his hand up. So
What's going on, everybody? Sorry, I haven't been asking too many questions. Just I haven't been feeling too well. But I just want to say that one thing I want to really point out is when you guys were talking about the universal healthcare or anything universal or any mandate, that's one thing that really fires me up and triggers me to go full in and oppose all tyrannical actions like this, tyrannical thoughts, because it's so un-American to mandate health insurance for everybody. Imagine trying to force people. I like as soon as that happened, I was so angry when I that thought. I just remember that feeling like, how dare you think you're going to force me to buy health insurance? Who the f are you? You know what I mean? That's one thing that pisses me off. And like mandating vaccines, mandating anything. Like even if you were to tell me something good for me, even if you were to say, you know what, I'm going to mandate vitamin C for everybody every day, I would be like, f you. No, you're not. Don't tell us what to do, right? That's a communist way of thinking. And I really hate communist thoughts. I really do. So, anyway, just wanted to express that. And we must fight that to the end. Nobody should be forcing anybody to do anything. Nobody should be forcing you to address people a certain way. You're not getting that. So, question to you guys. I have several questions, but one question I want to say is to both Eric and Scott is, all right, two-part question is, what is the one thing you could say that really fueled you into speaking out? Like, there's always that one, I know you have several things, but like, what's that one most passionate thing that said, you know what, enough is enough. It's my time to step up and talk. That's the first question. The second question is, with this administration, what would you like to see accomplished the most? Each, either Scott or Eric, whoever wants to jump in first.
Scott, you had your hand up first. I'll go after.
I guess I'll just say that the thing that fueled me, that woke me up, that kind of got me sort of like wanting to speak up and just hear my own voice and just try to get other people to speak up, was during Trump's first term. It wasn't. I don't think it was anything necessarily extremely horrible, considering to like what we've seen in the last like 10 years. But it was just that when he started, I saw like such an immediate change in the media, how the media handled him versus how they handled Obama. Like I was already salty on Obama, and yet the media like coddled him. And literally from the first month of of Trump's presidency, they were already trying to impeach the dude. I was like, I remember, and I wasn't even like, I wasn't even on the Trump train yet, and I was just like, I was talking to, I remember many conversations with coworkers, and I was saying to myself, or I'm not saying to myself, I was saying to them, well, don't you got to give him a chance? They're like, no, and these people were like literally telling me, no, we got to get rid of him. I'm like, but what has he done? And they couldn't even answer the question. They're like, he's horrible. I'm like, but why? What has he done? He's just an awful person. We don't want him in the White House. I'm like, well, somebody does. Somebody voted for him. A bunch of people. I said, I voted for him. Half the country voted for him. But what has he done wrong? He at that point he hadn't even done a thing. He hadn't passed. It wasn't like right now where like he a month in and he'd passed like 150 executive orders and he's firing this person. He I mean the first month he was still feeling. I remember in his first month he had people quitting on him because they didn't want to because they were going through too much scrutiny. Like they didn't want to go through the whole vetting process. I remember multiple cabinet positions. People just kept dropping out because they didn't want to deal with the circus. And I was just like, aren't you going to at least give this guy a chance? And the whole consensus was no. I was like, this is just really really weird to me. Like, what is going on? And that's when I started to do my own research, and that's when I just started to kind of like read into stories and read full articles and realize that the headline doesn't always match the story. And I was like, well, wait a minute, he didn't say this, he said this, but you didn't see that until like page 10. And I apologize, just by going on my little rant, I forgot what your part two was, the part two question.
Yeah. So my part two question is, what's that one thing that you would really love for this administration to accomplish?
The current one,
Correct.
I mean, honestly, what they're doing right now with Doge, I'm sorry, that's just a generic answer. I mean, the generic way to describe it is for once and for all, cleaning up or draining the swamp. And how do you drain the swamp? You drain it from its money, you drain it from its influence, you drain it from the people who have been there for way too long with all the wrong intentions. And it's not a Democrat or Republican thing. There's probably just as many people in the Republican Party that need to go. Erik and I talk all the time about Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. These people need to go. Anybody that was in politics was in the House or Senate in the 90s should not still be there. It's just this not. And what they're doing right now, time will tell to see exactly what happens. It's really I keep reminding people it hasn't even been a month yet. But as far as I can see right now, they're they're on the right darn track, and they have the really strong ability. I mean, Elon Musk. Say what you want about him, I don't trust him 100%, but he's a smart fucking guy, and he's got some really good people working for him. I hope that they are loyal to him, and I hope they're loyal to what the purpose of this is in fixing this. If we can get to the we don't need to be paying whatever it is 20-30 trillion dollars in taxes every year. They don't need it. It's what fuels all of this nonsense, this evil. I mean, if you can fix that, you'll not only fix the country, you'll probably fix the world.
Absolutely. Great answer, and I totally agree with you.
For me, go ahead, Mark. You got something you want to say before I get into a dialogue?
Yeah, I wanted to say my one thing would be along the same lines of what Scott said, but to simplify it, mass incarcerations of every corrupt Republican and Democrat politician across the board. If you got caught with insider trading, if you got caught taking lobbyist money to influence your decisions, any type of corrupt, illegal activities that you were doing while you're in office, put them in prison. That's what I have to say about that. And really quickly, the healthcare plan that I have is not universal healthcare. Like I said, it's a hybrid, and it's a lot more complex than that. It has to do more with corporate insurance when you're an employee. Having a basic level plan and then supplemental insurance covering the difference. It's a lot more complicated than the simple universal health care that the communists want. So I just wanted to clarify that, and I'll pass it over to you, Erik.
So Cozy, your first question was what prompted me, correct? Is that what to
Yeah,
start speaking
yeah,
out?
yeah. What was that prompt? Hmm.
So, you know, I mentioned earlier about, my service in Iraq. Well, my first stint on active duty was actually in the Marine Corps out of high school. So I swore an oath. Um, put my hand, raised my hand up, and took an oath to uh, defend this country against enemies, foreign and domestic. Okay, and that oath is still with me, and it goes with me until the day I die. That's when I'm still held to that oath, and I did it again. Like I said, right or wrong, whether we agree with why we went into Iraq and everything like that, country called, I went. So for me personally, watching our country become a banana republic in 2020. So I already knew things were bad. I knew, going back to what Scott was saying about, the media and just everything was impeached. He's terrible. Everybody on social media was, he's the worst. He's a Nazi. It was Nazism, racism, sexism, whatever it is. It was an ism that they would throw at him. Right. So that was already something I was already used to with the media. The Marxist state media has been like that for quite some time now. I watched how, the Clinton News Network was fantastic, during the 1990s. I watched what the media did to Bush, right or wrong. Obviously he deserved a lot of it, but in the end, when we when we found out, but the coverage was completely different with the creation of cable news. Right, things changed. Everything became opinionated, and it stopped being about news. But for me, in 2020, we watched our country in real time, right? Because a lot of people went to sleep with Trump up like, millions of votes in states. Wake up the next morning, he's down 500,000 votes everywhere, right? So that was the first thing. So I was like, what? And then we started seeing videos which were taken down off of social media um, almost immediately, right? You would see it. You would see people dumping the mass dump of ballots and stuff like that. We watched this shit in real time. So like our eyes were not lying to us, okay? And one of the things my mom always tells me, she's always told me since I was a kid, is don't always listen with your ears, listen with your eyes because they're telling you the truth. Trust me, And so that was one, and that just started to gear me up, right? And then what they did to the political prisoners, the J6ers, okay, and the lawfare, where in 2024, before the election and going into the election, even after, there were still men and women sitting in jail without due process, without even being charged with anything, without even seeing a judge. Okay, and obviously what they did to Trump. Okay, and just watching the lawfare and watching our constitution being absolutely and totally destroyed, and it was being ripped up intentionally in front of us, okay, on a daily basis, and it just kept ramping me up and ramping me up and ramping me up, and then it finally led to me, starting my channel and just starting to speak out on this stuff, okay, and this the constant spending money here, spending money. And that's something that we've done for a long time, right? But just the constant money, like Vladimir Zelensky became our biggest welfare recipient. And I was just like, holy crap, just the money. Every time my money was going somewhere, it was in the news and it was being reported, right? Another 500 million here, or another 500 million there. And not even just with Zelensky, it was going everywhere, as we were seeing with Doge now, where all our money's going. And, I guess the second part of your question, um, I want just to add to what Scott is saying, I want this administration to continue to keep their foot on the pedal, okay? Because right now, the train left the station and nobody can keep up with him. The Democrats don't know what to do. The rhinos don't know what to do. The Marxist state media doesn't know what to do. Okay, and they're just completely behind. He has zero fucks at this point to give. All right, and I want him to stay with that and absolutely continue to do that. All right, and just foot on the pedal, clean up the damn swamp, clean up our agencies, okay, because we need to get rid of some of them, downsize the government, actually downsize the government. And again, this is an effort that can be done over 4 years, but it's going to take even longer than that. So what we as the citizenry have to do is we have to stay complacent. Okay. Don't lose it. Don't lose any complacency. Keep our eye on the prize and understand that Trump is one man. He's gone in 2028. Okay. And we have to continue to fight. The fight is not over. It's just begun. So I just want them to keep their foot on the pedal and continue doing what they're doing. Oh, and also force the Republicans in these 2 years, because we have to assume we have these 2 years, okay, to get laws on his desk to codify the shit that he's doing via executive order, because we can't continue to afford to have our presidents do things via executive order constantly, because we can't get laws to his desk. So that's what I want done.
And also election integrity. Cafecito.
Yeah, I wanted to add a comment and also a follow-up question to you guys. So in regards to the budget, that is one of my greatest encojonamientos that I have. You know, for over a decade, that was my principal job. I had to watch show production budgets, and I did that for hundreds of show production budgets. And if, for example, if I was working on MTV Cribs, that's a series. Each production shoot is a different budget, excuse me, and each house required a different budget. So if I'm spending everything in the first fucking shoot, I'm not gonna have enough to do my other shoots. If I scheduled a shoot that went wrong on a weekend, depending on the scope of it, that was easily anywhere from $15,000-$30,000 and up. And having to have those conversations in the doghouse with accountants, with higher up bosses as to how you're going to recoup money that now you have to make the rest of the shows work. Giving you just a little example, because that translates to companies who get in serious trouble when they don't have a balanced freaking budget, when they lose money, when they can't account for shit. So the fact that we have been just living in the United States with politicians, our own local electeds, just accepting money, funneling money, being part of collusion, to me, that is so unacceptable and infuriates me. And this boots on the ground efforts that we do through Cafecito Break, there's been times that we had no clue. We're asking about pumpkins and cakes, and somebody comes out of nowhere and says, hey, while you're at it, since you're in all these different rooms, if you ever come across such and such a politician, can you ask that person what happened to the $1 million that was supposed to be donated to this location? Oh, since we know that you're always, can you ask these politicians why they take us out? And so they could, like the viejos from the senior centers would tell us, they use us as pawns, take us across the street, pose with us, promise that they're going to give us all these things for the senior center, that we're going to have more trips, that we're going to have more resources, and none of that ever happens. But yet nobody's stupid. We know they got money, but the money freaking disappears. We could keep talking about it when you see how inflamed I am. The money that went missing with the mayor de Blasio. So I am excited about Doge. I hope that it serves a purpose besides, like, I'm announcing these things, but that we see long-rooted results, because we have been in esclavitud. Like, I remember my father on one salary, and he was a welder that didn't work all of the time, but we were able to have a life and eat and have a roof over our head and pay all of our bills. And life has not been like that for many people in the United States. There in places like New York, like, people for many years they're paying like more than half their what they make in rent, let alone trying to find eggs in places like Whole Foods that don't exist right now. So yeah, that was my long rant about the whole budget thing. Like, it feels like it's about time that folks get consequences for being responsible for money, because to me that's theft, and that also equates to God. Like, that's how I woke up a taxi driver who was an immigrant, who was like, what's your problem with open borders? This is a land of immigrants. And I was like, I got a problem with the Democrats or politicians making decision with money that's not theirs. Last time I checked, that's stealing. you're not there for that purpose. So, obviamente, this has struck a Puerto Rican New York chord in me. I apologize for getting so inflamed. And I forgot my freaking question, so I'll pass it on to whoever wants to say, and my question will probably come back to my brain in a second. Mark, I'll pass it on to you.
We like the enthusiasm, Cafecito. There's no need to apologize. We're all passionate about politics here. Yeah, and you know, I think Erik or no Scott that said he doesn't trust Elon Musk, and I've said it on this program on numerous occasions. The whole dark MAGA is like his symbolic way of letting you know he's a black hat, and con artists don't walk into your door letting you know that they're a con artist. They they're nice to you. They gain your trust. They do nice things for you, and then they screw you. I mean, this is somebody who has the technology to put chips in people's brains. So he's a very smart guy. He's the richest guy in the world, and he's at least pretending to be on our side, and he's doing a good job in uncovering corruption. So I'm happy for it, but I don't necessarily trust him either, and I don't think I will because. I mean, supposedly the shadow banning and things of that nature are gone, but it's not because this platform is shadow banned, and we got people who have large followings, and we don't have that many people listening in on here, and that's partly because conservatives and who talk about certain topics are continuously shadow banned on his supposedly free speech platform. So um on a side note, apparently he impregnated Ashley St. Clair, and there are people who are attacking her. And I don't know, I've met her on numerous occasions, and she's a good person. And the people attacking her could go f themselves. And I'll pass it on to Cozy on that note.
I just want to say that I definitely don't trust Elon Musk. I think listen, we all know all those businesses he had in the past and still does, right? The brain chips, the whole start with PayPal and all the other stuff he's doing. I think he was just like a villain, just like Bill Gates, and he found a way to make himself look good to us, right? So how he did it was like, hey, I'm going to be a hero of free speech. He jumped up, became the hero of free speech, and everybody just groveled to his feet. Listen, I'm all for free speech. I don't think there was real free speech on Twitter X. I'm still being superly suppressed. Anyway, I just want to say, what do you guys think of? I definitely don't trust him. And what about his son's comments when he said he starts giggling like in this devilish way, and he says, "Quietly do what we want. We quietly do what we want." Just wanted to hear your feedback on that.
I didn't hear that, but I'm not surprised either. It's seems exactly like what we think is going on. They just behind the scenes, the things that aren't public, they're planning their evil.
Wait, Mark. You guys, Rosangel, can you pull that up because we gotta all hear that. I wish we had video so you on this platform so you can actually see it.
Okay, let
But
me
if you
see if
can
I could
find that
find it,
clip,
the little
it's
clip.
so freaking demonic. It's funny.
Do either one of our special guests want to comment on that while we wait for Cafecito to see if she can find the audio? I mean, we could always Google it on the side, or you could put it in the chat, a link or something.
I hadn't heard about it, so
So I'm not the only one then,
no,
I guess.
Oh,
I hadn't heard about it.
I did
Sorry.
Yeah,
Erik?
see
I didn't
some
hear
of
about it
those
either.
clips.
I might have missed that one. I've been a little bit busy this past
That's
week.
what they want. That's the perfect thing right there. It's another example of the things, quietly happening.
Okay, that's interesting that the both of you went and pivoted to Elon because that was the question that I had for Scott and Erik. What are your thoughts about Elon? And before you answer that question, I did see some of those clips and I feel split about it. There's something cool about seeing the kids, and being more family oriented. You know that a lot of our work, we have kids and young people who join us. That being said, there are times where I feel like if the big boys and big girls are going to be in the room, it's the big boys and the big girls. Not we're not being entertained by anything else. And it almost seems upstagey. It almost seems like I'm the crown prince and I could do whatever I want. And optically, it doesn't look good. And I definitely can understand the Don Lemons of the world who are like, who's the president here? So, Scott?
Yeah. My honestly, my thoughts on Elon are exactly like my thoughts on Trump and anybody in politics. It's the same. I feel like I'm like I tell people like I feel like I'm awake. Like I don't trust anybody 100%. Um, when they talk about the cabal and things like that, I tell them, who says there's only one cabal? You know, maybe they're all part of a different cabal that's trying to take over. Who knows? I don't have the proof either way. Nevertheless, anybody that's rises to that position, I don't think is just a coincidence. Um, but as far as Elon, you know, and even Trump, I think that we need to live. I take it back to an old Sopranos quote when Carmela was going to see a priest about what should she do? Should she leave her husband or not? He goes, try to live in the good and forego the rest. He's like, that's the only thing that you can do under God. And when you have Trump, who has basically made his political career on certain things that he's not a dumb guy. He knows what what galvanizes the side that is against the people who he's going up against. So he talks about free speech. He talks about less government. Maybe he believes in that or not. I don't know. I'm certainly going to go with the person who's at minimum talking about it than the person who's definitely talking against it, right? I mean, I think Trump supporters mostly, I know they call us a cult and things like that. All I remember is anytime Trump has made like a bad decision on something, I think his supporters have actually called him out on it. I remember back in 2020 when on the campaign trail, who did he bring on stage? Was it Johnson and Johnson? The executives from Johnson and Johnson, I believe, or I don't know if it was Moderna. I think it was Johnson and Johnson. He practically,
Yeah, with Jim Day.
yeah, I think practically got booed out of the arena. nobody in that, nobody in that stadium or wherever the hell they were wanted anything to do with those fucks, and they let him know that. And people were like, that's when anytime anybody says to me about, well, Trump's responsible for warp speed, I'm like, yeah, but one thing he's pretty much been solid on, he's never said he wanted to force it on anybody. He said that back in 2020, and he says that now. In fact, he's actually doing executive orders now, punishing anybody that tries to force that on kids or anybody. So for warp speed, for better or worse, and there was a lot worse than better. He's never forced it on anybody, unlike another political party who pretty much wanted you to lose your job, lose your life, lose your parents. I lost my godmother this past year because she was forced to take the fucking jab. And I remember her when she told me the story that she had my family members who actually believed in the jab had to sit there and bite their tongues while she told the story about how 3 weeks after she got the jab, her fucking life just got destroyed. She's like, her health deteriorated quickly, and within a year she was gone. I mean, she wasn't a spring chicken or anything like that, but she was in perfect health for her age, and somehow, like within a year and a half, gone, just like that. Um, so yeah, I've got more than just one dog in this fight, and I will when it comes to Elon. He pushes. He claims to push free speech. I'll go with the guy that's claiming to push free speech rather than the guy like Jack Dorsey who obviously didn't push free speech. He did. He just didn't. I'll take less censorship over more censorship any day, even if it's not perfect. And I'll leave it at that.
As far as me, I Yeah, I don't push shit past anybody, right? Like anybody's capable of doing anything, including Elon Musk. Um, but what a lot of people forget too is that one of the reasons he came over, and this is because the Biden administration went after him. Right? Here he is. He's building all these rockets. He's doing all this stuff. He's got all these contracts with the government, with his businesses and whatnot. And they go after his money because he disagrees with them on something. Right? And like Scott said, do I think he's perfect? Do I think that he might have some, ulterior motive? Probably. Everybody probably has motives that that they don't talk about. Um, but I'll stick with the guy who's you know, I'll at least support, not necessarily stick with. All right, you're talking about free speech, but like you guys were talking about, right? It's not totally free speech on here. People are still getting silenced. Think about a guy who stayed out of everything when he probably should have jumped on. Mark Zuckerberg, right? He came out. I'm a libertarian now. He's full of shit. Every single one of my reels on Instagram, okay, are in timeout. I can't make money on it. I can't do anything. All right. My stories, if I'm lucky at best, I get 40 people, 40 of my followers see my stories. But I got 20,000 freaking followers. Okay. And I'm lucky if 40 people actually see my stories. Okay. Or my posts. So, you know, I don't trust him. But we probably shouldn't trust him. But right now he's doing the work that he's being asked to do. And Trump's not a moron, okay? And if Trump does some shit that I don't like he's done in the past, I'll definitely call it out. You can ask Scott. We call him out on shit that we don't like right away. And we've said it on our show on more than one occasion that yeah, we like what he's doing, but if he comes out of his face and he says something or he does something, he directs somebody to do something that's not right, we're going to call him on it. And I think we should continue to use social media, all right, to blast them, including guys like Elon Musk, right? Look at the whole thing that he opened his mouth and stepped in it, and fucking social media when he's on his own platform that he owns went absolutely apeshit on him, okay, and he ended had to retract a little bit, but if you look at the people that Trump has got, everybody that's in his team, this conglomerate of freaking people on the right and people on the left. RFK Jr. He's no Republican. I probably disagree with like 90% of the stuff that comes out of RFK Jr.'s mouth. But what I do agree with him is medical freedom, and I'll be with him with that 100%. Democrats went after him. Okay, what did Trump do? Reached out a hand. Tulsi Gabbard, she spoke out about Obama as a congresswoman. They literally told her in Congress, any bills you bring, anything you co-sponsor is dead on arrival. All right, and that was when she walked away from politics. All right, and now look at her; she's out DNI. They put her on. They put her on quiet skies. The Biden administration. They went after her. This is years after what happened to her under Obama. All right, when she questioned the Obama administration because she started to see the dirt coming out and was like, "Wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense." Right, and they went after her. So, Trump is bringing people together that essentially the Marxists have went after hard. Okay, and he's utilizing them. Do we have to keep a freaking an eye on them? Absolutely. I think we should, including Trump. Like Scott was saying, it's still politician stuff right now. Okay, and we're at a point in our history where good things are happening, right? But we can't take our eye off the prize. We got to make sure that those good things continue to go on. We can't stop being loud. We can't stop using our platforms to what do you call it? Tell people the truth. And because when the truth seekers come, we got to give it to them, and we got to just continue to do that. So, like I said earlier, the last statement, my last rant, Trump is just one man. Okay, the fight has just begun. We cannot be complacent. Pay attention. I'll add, okay, make sure you pay attention to what's going on locally. All right. And because that's even more important than the national stuff. And just yell at the top of your lungs when you disagree with something, especially with the people that you put into office. If you disagree with them, you speak your piece. So I mean that's where I kind of stand with Elon. I'm wary. I'll take a step back and I'll take a look at, but right now I have more, you know, like Scott said, Jack Dorsey wasn't even about free speech. I mean, they shut everything down. They took the president of the United States and canceled him on social media. So right now we're in a better place. But I'm with you all. I don't think we should just sit back and think that everything is hunky dory and everything is perfect. The fight continues, and we just can't give it up.
I just want to add that Trump has a history of putting people on stage that he knows the crowd is going to boo, and he's done that with politicians too, local politicians in the states that he's been in. He wants them to get booed on stage and have, that on camera. So he's a lot smarter than people think he is. And I've talked about Operation Warp Speed on numerous occasions. He tried to pass hydroxychloroquine so that there's no emergency release. It was an election year. People wanted a vaccine. He was the one taking things seriously by banning travel from China. And Pelosi's in Chinatown saying no one needs to worry about anything. And then next thing you know, he's the one not taking it seriously when he wants to, do alternative treatments instead of a vaccine so that a vaccine doesn't even need to come out. So he did what he could as one person, but the big pharma movement that has the majority of Congress and the Senate in their pockets, and when I say the majority, it's not an understatement, as well as controlling the media and everything. Even though he's the president, he has a limited amount of power, and the lockdowns would have continued if the vaccine wasn't released. So, I also want to say that, even though I 90% trust President Trump, there is this Russian Operation Trust, it was called, with the Romanovs and the Bolsheviks, which was the start of the Soviet Union. Basically, you had people on the bad guy side control the opposition. Basically, they had it similar to like what they were saying with Q, like, trust the plan. Don't worry, we got it all figured out. There's a military operation, and you don't need to worry about anything. We're gonna get all the bad guys. Don't worry about anything. And then next thing you know, you have the founding of the Soviet Union, because it was all BS and it was controlled opposition. So yeah, I trust Trump, and I for the most part, but I also, have it in the back of my mind that anything is possible. He could be one of the bad guys. I don't think he is, but there's still the possibility. So, and I'll land my plane with that because I know Scott has had his hand up for a while as well.
I was just gonna say, piggyback off of what Erik was saying. In terms of, like, who do we trust, who do we not trust? I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't trust anybody in politics 100%. I don't think anybody should. I don't care if it's Mother Teresa, although that's another whole story. But I don't think most people that are awake trust the Pope. I don't think there's anybody that we trust out there just 100%. We should always question. We should always just try to keep our eyes open. We should always discern the information that we're given, and we should always, look at it. Is the information given to us propaganda? Because 90% of the information given to us is propaganda. One of the things that I tend to encounter, especially in the last few years, is that as I've become more and more vocal and I become less and less afraid of just speaking my mind, I encounter people who do not think like me and who do not, discern information. They take what they hear at face value, and if it's they say it on the news, oh my God, it's gospel. And one of the things people always kind of try to throw at me, and they think it's a gotcha question. They're like, they come at me, and these are even family members. These aren't just strangers on Instagram. These are family members at the the christening that I had to go to. They'll be like, because they know that I like Trump, and they'll say to me, "Well, you're in a cult," and I'll say, "No, I'm not." They're like, "Prove it. Tell me something you don't like about Trump." And I'll always, at my fingertips, have at least like 3 or 4 things that I don't like. Usually things that they're completely unaware of because they don't they don't dig into any sort of issues or policies at all. And I'll just say, sometimes I'll just recite off a bill number they have no idea about. And then when I tell them, and of course, they're never just quite satisfied with that. They're like, "Well, fine. At least you know that he's not a god." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I never said he was. I mean, I think the other side is the one that says that we think he's a god more than anybody else. I don't know any MAGA people that think Trump is a god. Um, but the point of it is that when they try to walk away, I say, "Oh, whoa, 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 whoa! Now it's your turn." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, tell me something. Tell me 3 or 4 things that you don't like about the Democrat Party." And they're like, "Well, I'm not a Democrat per se." I'm like, "That's too bad. You started this conversation. We're going to end it with you." And I have yet to have one person in the world, whether it's a private conversation, just one on one in the backseat of a car, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's in a DM, whether we're in confessional and I'm the archbishop. I've never had one person actually tell me something they don't like about the Democrat Party. To which I've always finished with, "Who's in the cult again?" And they walk away.
I didn't know you were an archbishop.
Absolutely. Archbishop Perez, you never heard of me? Shit.
And there's a lot that they could criticize, right? Like, look at all the crazy shit that they fucking promote. It's like, where do you start? How are you okay with every position of the Democrat Party? From like guys punching women in the face, like, I mean, mandating things on people, censorship. I mean, I could go on and on for decades about all the shit that they have wrong, and like they can't criticize one aspect. It's good that you get them that way. That's awesome.
I'll just say this really quickly. I've brought up things that I've heard them say before that they didn't like. Like I remember them, and they probably didn't even know I was listening to conversations. But I remember saying, "Hey, wait a minute, didn't you hate Obamacare?" This was like obviously years ago. But you were saying you thought it was the worst thing in the world. So could you say that that's something you absolutely hate? And they won't even answer that. They won't even answer questions like that. They'll just be like, "Oh, well, they'll have to. I gotta go." I don't know. Honestly, they're the cult because they can't even just admit it. It's so freaking hilarious.
It's an extreme brainwashing level of stubbornness, but Cafecito.
I wanted to quickly add that I'm learning new ways of uh, repositioning TDS so that I'm not the bearer of the anything that they don't understand. And lately, because it's been happening with some family members, whenever there's something related to Trump and um there was one I didn't even know anything about. It was ICE and Puerto Rico. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, y eso de Trump, y de Puerto Rico, and ICE. And I'm like, I don't understand what's going on. And what do you have to say? What do you have to say for yourself? Huh? Huh? How are you going to defend your boy Trump? And I was like, first of all, I'm not his wife. And I'm not his PR person. And last time I checked, I do not work for the administration. So why are you asking me? Like, for someone who hates Trump and who's the one that brings him up all the time? I never bring him up. I know you don't like talking about him, but you always bring him up. Why? Why are you so interested? And asking those questions stumps the person time and time again. And it's also happened when I've walked around with Kennedy, supporting Kennedy. Oh, don't tell me that you support that quack. And I'll just give them like a Kermit the Frog look and say something very simple, which makes them understand that I know you know nothing of what you're speaking about. And then all of a sudden they don't know how to respond because now they're in the hot seat. Yeah, those days are long gone. That tremendo butcher every single time people's panties get in a bunch on when it comes to something Trump does. And Trump does something every day. From tweeting something, Xing, whatever it's called these days, to the Valentine's Day memes that the White House came up with. I mean, Dios mío, passing it on to Cozy.
Yeah, man, people really I get the same shit from like family. I'm not gonna mention who, but there's a family member that like your boy Trump, your boy Trump. I'm like, He's not my boy." First of all, second of all, what's wrong with you? Like they mentioned about Kennedy, like somebody, I'm not gonna mention who, but somebody said something about Kennedy, like, "Oh, look at this craziness! Like he's saying he was a heroin addict and he took heroin and he started doing better in school." I'm like, are you retarded? I'm straight up. Are you retarded? Like you just take sound bites? I said, have you ever listened to this man? Honestly, I said, have one long form interview. Have you ever seen an interview with him? I said, I guarantee you, if you listen to him speak, you're going to love the guy because it's hard not to like him. You know what I mean? And then I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like all these things they keep mentioning. Like, oh, look, they're cutting everything. I'm like, yeah, good. They need to cut everything. There's so much excess spending, you know and certain things, and I'm like, all right, so what do you have to say about transgender kids and promoting that and allowing them to make these decisions? What do you have to say about this open border, where everybody just comes right in? You think that's fair? And it just go on and on, just blasting them with all this crazy stuff, being forced with a vaccine, all this crazy shit that they've done. And they have nothing to say about it, but like they just want to keep and again, like you, like just like you were saying, I don't go around talking about this. I barely say a word because I know it's going to upset people, and I'm not here to upset people. I'm here to just do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? I go about my business, but they're the ones fucking trying to trigger me. So like I don't talk unless you talk directly about it. You know what I mean? I have better things to do. I don't sit here like just petty and trying to point out every little problem. Anyway, the point is, man, people are so annoying. They're uneducated. They're brainwashed. They're brain damaged and psychologically damaged. And this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a psychologically damaged people, and that's what we have to understand. We have to always be the better people, and that's the only way we're going to win this. And I'll keep saying this, is like we have to always be the better person and try to to kind of make this world a better place, because they're not going to do it. They're damaged. Eric.
Yeah, so basically what I do is I just give him the gas face, right? And then and then I give him the baby Ruth, and just that's where I'm at with them. There are some people, okay, that you know, Cozy, I feel you, man, and I appreciate that sentiment of I do agree that when people come to us and they want to get the facts, right? And they're actually seeking truth, we give it to them, right? But they have to genuinely want it, because there are some people in this world, as we have seen, all of us have witnessed with our own eyes, that just want to see the world burn, okay? And particularly our world. All right. They don't understand the Constitution. They don't understand that we're a constitutional republic. You hear the word democracy all plastered all over the media. You see people saying democracy all over social media. You see it in newspapers back in the day. Those of us who used to read periodicals, and I still do when I get a chance. Um, Democracy, democracy, democracy. We are not a democracy. We have democratic practices. Okay. We do some things democratically, but we are not. If we lived in an actual democracy, it would be mob rule. It's the reason why you have these shithead parliaments all around the world. They're constantly fighting with each other over things, and you have like 12 different parties. That's a whole other thing. I have no problem with different parties, but you'll see in another country 12 different parties, and the person with 2% freaking wins, right? The party with 2% or whatever it is, 20%, at the time. So, uh, you know, talk to people who want to learn, give them the information that you need. Like, I'm like you guys. I don't really, the only time I'm talking about things is when I'm talking with Scott, or we're on the show together, because that's what our show is about, is talking to the truth seekers. And our chat, as Cafecito can tell you, is very, very informative, and they go a mile a minute, and they're very, very involved, so all we can do, Cozy, is continue to just tell the truth when people are looking for it. That's all we can really do. When people are constantly being pendejas and pendejos, then let them be pendejas and pendejos. I got one in my family that I mean, it's amazing to hear her talk, right? absolutely agrees with absolutely everything. But the minute you say Trump, that's it. It's a wrap. It's over with. It's like, you sound like a conservative. You sound like us. You sound like a Christian conservative like me. But like, just because the media told you to hate Trump, you hate Trump, right? But you didn't hate him when he was going on Oprah. They didn't hate him back in the day, all right, when everybody was rapping about him and everybody wanted to be Trump. Okay. Nobody hated them. It was the day that he ran against. He said he was going to run, and Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the anointed one. She was supposed to be Queen Bee of the country, and we dodged a bullet with that one too. So just keep telling people the truth, Cozy. Don't. I don't. Again, I don't even stress things out. They get the brrr, the gas face from me when I laugh at them, because you're just a moron. If you want to be a moron, be a moron. If you want to actually have a constructive conversation, then we'll have a constructive conversation, even if you disagree with me.
Yeah, no, I definitely give people the truth. I just don't go around giving it to them, like especially like family, unless they bring it up. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I'm constantly talking, but I've learned to not engage with like idiots because that's just a waste of freaking energy.
We dodged the World War III bullets twice with Trump, once in 2016 and once in 2024. Vladimir Putin said in 2016 that if Hillary Clinton wins, then they're ready for nuclear war. I don't know if you can find that in Google, but I remember him saying that. I remember seeing the video of him saying that. But I just want to remind everyone we air at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Monday. Myself, Cafecito Break, and Cozy Wellness. Um, we generally have special guests today. Our special guests are Erik, Soto, and Scott Perez, who have their own show as well. Make sure you're following them. You could click on any of our photos and click the follow button. I followed Erik and Scott just now. You guys could do the same by clicking on the photo and clicking the follow button. Please repost this to get as many people out there as possible listening to our message, and join us every Monday at 9 p.m. And with that being said, I'll pass it back over to Scott, who has his hand up.
Oh, I was just, I guess I was just going to share, an anecdote of people's cognitive dissonance when it came to just, trying, because like Erik and me were constantly trying to wake people up. I haven't given up on the population as much as like some people have. People, there's, I had at least 3 or 4 people today tell me that, people that are still asleep, they're still asleep. They're never going to wake up. And I said, no, no, I don't. I just don't believe that. I don't know if that's naivete or that's just, I just have hope. I said, without hope, there's no reason to keep going on. Um, and it was very recently someone was trying to tell me it had to do with it had to do with an article about illegals, and I honestly I couldn't even tell you the name of the website this person showed me on their phone. I mean, I've seen some pretty, extreme websites out there, but this one took the cake. And they were trying to say that I was an extremist. And I'm like, where are you even getting this article from? Like, look at this site. It was like it was like the very first sentence in the article saying, so we all know Trump is a racist. And I was just like, this is your news source. um, but I placated them and I said, "What do you want me to read?" And they're like, read it. Look what they're doing. Look what they're doing." And the point of the article was about how they're increasing the penalties, I guess, on illegals. Um, and basically, and after reading through it, I mean, the article itself really provided no information. What they what they stupidly did was they actually provided all the links to the executive orders that Trump signed. So I said, well, I'm going to go actually click every single link. I'm going to read exactly the verbiage that was written down by our president. And you go through it, and it's like, I don't see what's going on. I don't see what the article had absolutely nothing to do what was in the executive orders. It said the only thing about executive orders is it says holding people accountable. And I guess there was a focus on anybody that was convicted of rape or murder, and I just like Cafecito was saying about looking for ways to turn it around on people. And I said, so you're saying that we shouldn't hold people who rape and murder accountable? Is that what you're really trying to get me to side with? And they really didn't know what to say. I said, because that's how you're coming at me in this argument. I said, I don't really give a shit whether someone's legal or illegal. I mean, if they're raping and murdering people in their community, they need to go. And I said, instead of putting them I mean, whether they're going into a prison for the next 50 years or whether they're just being booted out of the country, who gives a shit? They need to be removed from society. Those are two of the worst things you can possibly do. I mean, and I saw them just. I don't know if like you just saw the light bulb was trying to come on, but it just kept flickering, and then they ended up walking away. And I said, really, anytime you want to come back and talk about this again, we can talk about it. Um, it's just like I used to get worked up and like really like argue with people hard, if they came at me either online or in person. I would, I my whole reaction was to just like clap back at them just as hard, if not harder, at them. If they were yelling at me, I was going to yell back at them harder. And now I just calmly like just respond, and it seems to infuriate them even more that I'm not reacting. That I'm not mirroring their energy and their hate and their ignorance. And whether you're on the street, whether you're talking to someone on X, whether you're talking to someone on Instagram, or it's at the family dinner, you just remain calm, and just like anything else, wait for all the facts to come out, because most of the time someone's heard like 5 seconds of a clip. They just don't know what the hell they're talking about. That is like 99 times out of 100.
I agree. That is exactly what opened my eyes to the propaganda and the weaponization towards Trump. I was working in 2015. Like I was doing part-time community relations stuff, and my job took me in places where I'm meeting with like nonprofits, um, church leaders, pastors, priests, nuns, elected officials, and seeing firsthand behind the scenes of how all those communities play together and how they support one another. And you know, when you have a conspiracy theory mind, or when you're conspiracy theory minded, you start kind of seeing, oh, when you're in the in group, you start seeing, understanding that you have a benefit. I think there were times where maybe we had an experience, and when I would see how it was written up in the press, it was almost like, wait, what? They said that we were gangsters in our approach to activism, and there were, or you start reading like accusations of, oh, such and such is saying that they're taking money and they're using it for this, and there were all these clues of mismanaged money and almost like a passiveness around budgets. But again, my job there was not those aspects. So it's just that you're seeing it, you're hearing it, but it has nothing to do with my day-to-day job. So I was pretty much staying in my lane. But when you go home, or you start processing, or you go into dream time, there were just moments where I really, to be quite honest, I felt like God was speaking to me through some of those dreams and giving me like little clues, in which one of them had to do with, you need to quit your job now, because there might be things that you could discover that you don't want to be a part of within those worlds. Things that people may know, secrets that get covered up. And I'm grateful that I trusted my gut, it was being in those settings because we were obviously, when you're in, I was raising awareness for affordable housing. We know that that's a dear a treasure for the Democrats. And through that job, I would also see how there were certain things that how people's lack of not doing their job work to certain conveniences. So I'll give you an example. So let's say we are hoping for an affordable housing property, and it has like, okay, a new building is coming up and it has a few homes that apartments in there that might be affordable housing. Then people are, in order to qualify, the applications need to be submitted by certain dates. And through the inner workings, you would see that there were people who in the back end weren't paying attention to dates, or promoting things when they were supposed to, or following up, or really actually showing up and doing their job, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There was such a laxical, like a laxed way of being and doing work, and most of it felt to me like symbols. And then the people were screaming the same thing. And cut to now we're here, where again people's emotions are weaponized, and we find ourselves, in situations where patriots are being pinned against other people. Obviously, we know all of the right and left conversations. The last bochinche I'll wrap out with, because then I'd like to toss it to you guys for wrap out comments, is now the Black versus Latino thing is going on. Like with the stuff at the border, there's these videos or young people coming out and saying, yo, what's going on? Like, um, we had your back during 2020 and the George Floyd riots. Now we need your help. A whole bunch of our folks and innocent people are getting deported, people who are not criminals, and y'all real quiet. What's going on? How come you sitting this one down? And I'm like, another thing to just keep weaponize groups to just keep fighting. So I'll end it there, and I'll pass it on to, let's start with Erik for responses and wrap out comments.
As far as the division, the division has been there for quite a long time. And what you have to understand is that the Marxist left, the current Marxist left here in the United States, is a conglomerate um, orgy of special interest groups. Really, okay? They all hate each other, all right? But what they do, and they have done really good for a long time, is band together when they need to. Just on this thing, they're not banding together because why? Who actually did who is it hurt the most? Well, I mean, it's hurting everybody, but listen, anybody who steps over our border and is not supposed to be here is a criminal alien. You can't convince me otherwise. I don't care if they're the nicest person in the world. You broke the law to get in here, you're illegal. Period. That's just the end of the case. So you got to go get back on the line, come in the right way, right? But a lot of blacks in black neighborhoods and stuff like that, they have affected it. All you have to do is look at videos coming out of Chicago. Now they continue to still vote. Unfortunately, like they don't vote correctly to fix it, but you see them complaining all the time of how illegal immigration has hurt them in their neighborhoods. So, of course the blacks aren't going to come out for this because they've been hurt a lot with it, right? But you got to also have to understand that a lot of these Hispanics that are out there, these they're pendejas and pendejos. A lot of them are young. Okay, we spoke on the show with me, you and Scott and your sister, okay, about how, and I said this is a whole other talk show, that Latin America has been overrun with socialism for a very long time, and that goes back to the late 19th century. Okay, so after the Europeans, after they did it in Europe, they knew that they had to play the long game in the United States, but they went full press, okay, in Latin America. So, that's a whole other talk show. So, the division's going to be there because the propaganda that they've been feeding these kids for a very long time, and we've actually, as a populace, let that happen because we've stood back and didn't monitor what our kids were being taught, and parents finally woke up during the pandemic is when they woke up, right? It's like, oh, whoa, the kids were if the kids weren't in school and they were working from home, on a laptop, they were actually seeing what it was that they were teaching their kids. So like that was a big thing that came out of that too. So, my as far as like my closing comments, I will say this, don't give up the fight. Um, don't stop fighting. Don't stop talking. To touch on what everybody has said here, uh, keep using your voice. Don't silence yourself. We get enough silencing from from all the social media platforms that we try to talk on. Okay. And when people want to come and they want to actually hear what it is that you have to say, talk to them about it. Like Scott was saying, when people are in your face and they just want to grill you and stuff like that. For me, like I said, I give them the gas face and the baby Ruth, and just keep moving, because it's if you don't want to have a constructive conversation with me, I'm not going to have there with you. Now, if you want to, if you have some opposing opinions and you're not going to change your mind, but you want to actually have a decent conversation with me, we can go back and forth about that. That's a total different thing. But use your voice. Um, Pay attention, okay, locally to what's going on. Going back to what Cafecito was saying, all these little groups, they're all in touch with each other. So pay attention to what's going on with your local politics. It is very, very important. No matter how much we care about the president and who our senator is and what congressmen and women we send, all right, to Washington, D.C., it is ultimately more important what goes on in your town, your village, your city, and your state. All right, because that's how you combat the shit that goes on in Washington through your state. So keep your eyes open, head on a swivel constantly, and just don't stop speaking. Don't ever stop. And you know, uh, this is a community of truth tellers and truth seekers, not only on our channel, but here with the here at Cafecito Break and with the New York Freedom Fighters. So I really truly appreciate you guys inviting me here and inviting Scott. I know Scott's going to probably have his own words, but it's for me, it's an honor to be here and to tell a little bit of my story, a little bit of my beliefs, and just to keep the message going, fam. Don't give up, and come see us over on the Break the Machine podcast when you get a chance, Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, definitely recommend you check them out. They have a good vibe. My sister and I had a great time, and we look forward to um, being able to join you guys again. And one thing that I'd like to add before I pass it on to Scott is just I really appreciate the vibe that everybody's creating. I think that that's part of this um, 2.0, where those of us are now sort of I don't know if the word is educating, because I'm not trying to like create a separation between, but just share our experiences, share people. There are a lot of people who are curious. There are a lot of people who have been left out or feel left out of the process. There are a lot of people that um see the red team as like this exclusive club filled with all of these biases that we have highlighted here today. But there is a large amount of people who are looking and are seeking people who feel like safe to talk to, and not someone who's going to berate them because you know we see both sides, or everybody just do extreme things, and that doesn't help sort of bring people together. There are also a lot of young people who are aching for more wisdom and insights and ideas. And this is part of what motivates me to be here with all of you. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for sharing tonight, Scott.
Thank you. Um, I really wasn't sure what I was going to say, but after listening to you and Eric, I'll just say this. You know, there's never been a better time to speak up than now. Um, Things may have been better 40 years ago, but people have never been more awake than they are right now. And, I still wake up every day shocked and surprised and thankful and grateful that Trump won back in November. And I got really emotional when that happened, and because it felt like all of it wasn't for nothing, everything that we've done over the last several years. But now is the time to be vocal. Whereas 4 years ago, a lot of people, especially in New York, it was not possible to be vocal. They literally shut people down, and they took your job away from you, and they took your livelihood, and they took your family away from you. Um, it was a very scary time 4 or 5 years ago. You see a very different. It's not just the vibe on our podcast; it's the vibe everywhere I go. I see it, and I'm not talking about just here in Florida. I'm talking about online. I see it. I see Trump signs, and I see people just starting to come out of their shells and realize. You see people in media, in Hollywood, in sports. You see at the Super Bowl, who got the biggest cheers? It wasn't the celebrities. It was Trump. You know, who was at the Daytona 500 getting cheers? It was Trump. Everywhere this man goes right now, he's batting. He may not be batting 1,000, but he's batting a pretty high average. He's batting at least 600, 700, which is damn good. And I tell anybody, if you're looking for a place, not just a place, if you were looking, now is the time to just speak up, and trust me, we will find you. Um, I look at my page sometimes in the post, and I see, there's no way to keep trolls away from your page and whatever you're trying to your post out there. And before I even have a chance to say anything to someone who maybe left me a stupid comment, I got my own freaking followers just jumping down people's throats and going after them for their nonsensical statements or their bullshit. Like, I don't even have to say a word. I just look back and there's already like 10 people just like, chewing their ass apart, and it's hilarious. I'm just like, psh, thank goodness, because I didn't want to have to get to that point. But you come on places like my page and Eric's page on Instagram, or places like this. Trust me, you will find like-minded people. You will find people who are discerning the truth and looking, and not just realizing it, but actually looking for it. Because what we know today is nothing compared to what we'll know tomorrow.
Amen.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Scott. It's been amazing chatting it up with the both of you tonight. And everything just feels like we've been like we've all known each other for so much longer. The synergy is
Facts.
there, and also I agree with what you said. Something seemed like it popped when we all learned that Trump won the election. There's something that shifted energetically, and I feel it in a lot of places. And I also see um, that people feel more curious and more they are more bold, and that's why intentionally I titled this bold. People are feeling more bold to explore, to ask questions, and I want them to know that there are places like here, this New York Freedom Fighter X Base, places like your show, places like Cafecito Break, or what my sister and I do in different places, where we're inviting community to come and be a part of it. And we won't bite. You can ask questions, you can challenge. We just, are asking for, an adult kind of back and forth, right? Like, people have become a little too sensitive, but also people have become a little too snotty. So I love it when it's like when it's just right, and this is a great example of it. Cozy, I'll pass it on to you for closing comments.
Thank you to both of you, Eric and Scott, for coming on and speaking with us. It was a pleasure having you guys. Great conversation, and I'm proud of you guys for doing what you're doing. Jumping up and stepping up and speaking out, because you never know who will you influence, right? It could be that one person, it could be thousands of people, it could be hundreds of thousands of people, but that spark is coming from your souls, and thank you for that. And anybody listening, yeah, I'll repeat the same thing that everybody's saying here is basically speak out, and because that's all we have. All we have is our voice, and that voice can create revolutions and can just keep us alive, keep us free. Just keep speaking out, no matter what the consequences are. So I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody. Have a good night and be well.
Thank you, Cozy. I'd like to remind everybody that, like Mark said, we're here every Monday. As you see, also recovering from my cold. We're here every Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And this space, it's like our own like private podcast. I love the surprise of any moment. Anybody could pop in. Love living in the moment on the edge in that way. But it does get repurposed and it gets shared across Cafecito Break social media platforms, which include Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And also, we are building a channel on Rumble because obviously some of the discussions here are not super YouTube friendly. On Rumble, you can find us at the Freedom Fighters, the New York Freedom Fighters, excuse me. Mark.
Yes, our group therapy session, as I like to call it, where we're talking to like-minded people, and it's like, yes, you get it. We're not, you're not insane like a lot of the other people who have their closed-minded stubbornness. And to go piggyback off of what somebody else said, it's not lost. There's some people who seem like they're a lost cause, and you would never think that they would you know turn around and get red pilled. I mean, Cafecito Break talked about how she was in love with Obama, and she got red pilled. So I mean, people get red pilled all the time, no matter how deep in the blue pill matrix they are. um they do wake up and they do take the red pill, and it goes with planting seeds, like you guys mentioned before. There's ways to intelligently and calmly articulate your side of the argument and point things out to them, and might seem stubborn at the time, because whether it's publicly on social media or privately in the back seat of a car, they might stubbornly not admit that they're wrong, but in the back of their mind, that seed is planted that, what, he made sense. I still hate Trump and blah, 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 whatever. And then, little by little, they get, red pill, they get awakening. Maybe one day they actually watch a full Trump speech and not the sound clips. So you see Charlie Kirk go up against these irate, mentally ill college students that are, you know and he calmly, puts his point out there and plants seeds all the time. So there is a way to wake people up, and we try to do our thing despite the shadow banning, every Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you repost it. Thankfully, Cafecito Break posts this on Instagram and Rumble and takes the time to put it out there. I know iTunes is probably another option down the road. I know I used to put my sports show on iTunes. It takes a lot of work to go from the live TV broadcast to put it on YouTube and iTunes and stuff. But I know Cafecito does her thing to try to get it to as many people as possible. And we're grateful for that. That you've been consistent so far with this program, and we've gotten some great special guests throughout the past. Hopefully, they repost this as well, and some of their followers listening to it later. Thank you, Erik and Scott, for joining us. Look forward to seeing what you guys do in the future, and thank you for being a part of this Freedom Fighter space, and thank you for everyone for listening. And with that being said, at some point on my Instagram, I'll do a video going over that healthcare plan. So maybe during the Trump administration, we see something like that implemented, as well as some of the many other ideas I had during the times when I was going to run for office. But in the I think me, Cafecito, and Cozy all got the same 2 week flu or whatever the case may be. We are on the final thoughts, but I guess if you want to add something again really quick before we wrap things up, Erik, go right ahead.
No, the only thing I wanted to say to you, Mark, was I know you had mentioned about that you might be running again. Definitely let us know so we can have you on the show, and you can let the people know. You know what I'm saying? What it is that you're running on and whatnot, and we just want to make sure we have you on. And Cafecito, then you got to come back with your sister. You know that.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And even if I don't run, I wouldn't mind being a guest on your show as well. But thank you again for joining us, and I'll pass it on to the hostess with the mostest to close us out. Cafecito.
Weba. I know we what has attacked our systems that we can't even. This has been going on for weeks.
Yep.
Right?
I thought it was the 3-day variety, and it's over a week now, and I'm still not 100%. I'm way better than I was last week, but still, yeah, it's and Cozy apparently isn't 100% either. But
No, that's kind of crazy when we have so much we want to share, and the voice is so limited. You got to respect it, right? Guys, thank you so much. Today has been really special. And you all exemplify being a bold patriot, walking that walk and talking that talk, and also educating along the way. And that's treasure. I want to just close out with this quote. It lives on our Substack, which, by the way, Mark, we do feed this to Apple iTunes podcasts, so it does get it. But we are building our separate, besides Cafecito Break channel, our separate The New York Freedom Fighters channel on Rumble. So I'm slowly putting the old shows, but the current ones are there. So this is the quote that lives on my website, Martin Luther King Jr. And I dedicate this quote to all the bold patriots all over the world. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Deep bow to all of you. God bless you. And we'll see you soon. Have a good night.